Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome, friends, once again to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. The old has-been coon hunter, Steve Fielder, here with you one more week, and so thankful that the good Lord has spared us another week that we can come and visit with you. My guest and I were just talking. He tells me it's a beautiful day today in the great state of Texas, and I'm so happy to bring to the microphone this week a legend in the coonhound sport, no doubt about it. The dog that he owned and hunted is perhaps the most famous coonhound of all times. And those of you who haven't been under a rock all these years know I'm talking about Tom Hopkins and the great House's Lipper dog. How are you, Tom?
Steve, I'm doing good. It's a great day.
Well, it is a great day. And, I'm going to right off the bat here start with discussing what I think is an amazing, amazing story. And that's about your dad, who is 98 years old. Am I right?
He will be 98 in September.
Yeah, well, he's closing in on it, isn't he?
Yeah.
Quite a remarkable man, because he's still very active at that age, isn't he?
Steve, it's amazing how active he is. I just got off the phone with him a few minutes ago. He's building a new house. But
he's building a new house at age 98.
Yeah, he's building a smaller house.
Oh.
A big house. He's going to sell his big house in about 30 acres and move into a smaller house. He's building there on the property.
Oh, good for him. Good for him. Well,
but I drove by there last week. I had to be down in Marshall for a meeting, and I told him I was coming down. He said, "Well, I'm going to be busy today, but you could come by." So I drove by his place, and he was out in the middle of the field on his tractor brush hogging. They had cut all his hay, and he was trimming up what they didn't cut. Said, "I got to get this brush hogging done so I can take this 15-foot brush hog off and put on my hay forks and move these rolls of hay and stack them." And he said, "I put in about 7 hours today."
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, yeah, he's rolling right along.
That is amazing. Now, they say a lot of that's genetics, and of course, you look like a big, strong, healthy man yourself. And I know you're not a pup, but how old are you, Tom?
I'm 74.
Okay, well, you're just behind me a bit. I'm going to be 79 in October. So you and I are not all that far apart.
Well, my wife will be 79 in October.
I got you. Well, mine is, she likes to say that I'm older than her, and I am by just 5 months, though. So, well, before I get away from talking about your dad and your family and so forth, were his parents long livers? Did they live to old age?
Well, early 80s.
Yeah.
Early 80s.
Yeah, that's good. Well, does he have brothers or sisters that lived a long time?
He's the last living one of 5 of them.
I see. Uh-huh.
And he was the oldest one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, what does he, I'm sure he gets asked this a lot. Does he attribute any certain thing to his old age?
He told me, I asked him that one time, and he said he said, son, he said, the thing is to look forward. He said, don't look back. He said, that's history. Look forward, and just look forward to what you're going to do next. And that was made sense to me. But he said, I just don't like to look back.
Well, he's always got something to look forward to then, just like you mentioned him there. He was brush hogging, and then he was going to go do something else. And, he's got a plan. Obviously, he's been one of those guys that planned his work and worked his plan down through the years, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been a hard worker all his life.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about this young generation that's coming up now. What somebody said once, they said they were going to start a revolution, and someone answered, well, how are you going to do that? You can't start a lawnmower.
Right.
We'll pick on the kids a little bit, but there's some good ones out there, I know for sure. But sometimes I worry about our country going forward. Who's going to fill the shoes of guys like your dad? What's your dad's name, Tom?
Felton's.
Okay. Now he operated what he sold automobiles, I believe, right?
Well, we started out with a little country general grocery store that I grew up in, and he got started in the car business there out beside the grocery store. He bought an old car from a customer and set it out there and sold it, and he bought 2 or 3 more. And he said, he said, I can make more off of one car than I can make off of selling 100 pounds of bologna in this grocery store. So
yeah,
he started in right there, and he was in the car business for many, many years. He just retired about 4 years ago.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Now, is he in Madisonville, did you say?
Marshall.
Marshall. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, explain to me where Marshall is. I'm not sure I've been to Marshall.
It's East Texas.
Okay.
It's about 35 miles from Freeport, Louisiana.
Okay. I'm sure I've been.
It's near the Louisiana. What do they call it? Deep East Texas.
Deep East, yes. Yeah. I heard that expression first when I went to Texas in 83. Well, no, probably when I was there in the military in the early 70s, 69, 70. But Deep East Texas, yes. And that would encompass. We had a world hunt at Crockett, and is that in the general area?
It's south, about a little over 100 miles, maybe a little southwest of Marshall.
Oh, okay, I got you. Far from Lufkin?
No, Lufkin's pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I remember so many people from down that way. Dallas Sanders, Miss Billy Woodward. And,
yeah.
And those people, that were active in the Texas State Coon Hunters Association. A good friend, Haskell Wright. Do you know Haskell?
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, Haskell's wife, Carol, just recently passed away, and we'll send condolences to him. Carol was a very funny lady. I always enjoyed seeing her every year at the Texas State and those events. But so many good people. I talk about that a lot on this podcast, Tom, because I've been so blessed with the number of people that I've met over the years. And, most of them I bring a smile when I say their name and bring a memory, that really touches me. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I know that I don't want to get into this quite yet, but I want to go right on into a discussion with you about your hound, the immortal House's Lipper. I don't think that there's a coon hunter alive that has not heard the name Lipper. A lot of the younger people that have come on in recent years may not know much about him, but they know that he was obviously a greyhound because everyone refers to him in one way or the other on their pedigrees or some of the traits that he passed along to his offspring and so forth. How's Lipper came into your life?
31.
Okay. Now, give us a little background. Lipper, I believe, was bred by Joe House, correct?
Uh-huh.
Of Clinton, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Joe was a very, very prominent coon hunter, and I'm not addressing this to you at all because you know the complete story, but for my listeners, Joe House was one of those guys in the early days of the coon hunts that was a very, very competitor and so forth, and he ran ads in American Cooner magazine and maybe Full Cry too, I imagine, and I always remember him saying, come down, where the rivers meet. And that would have been the Ohio River and the Mississippi River there. And but Joe has passed on. Do you remember when Joe died?
I don't really, as far as the date.
Well, about, do you remember the year at all? I don't. I should. I know it was, I talked to him many times while I was at UKC. Mm-hmm. I went there in 83, so I really don't know when he passed on. But let's give our listeners, first of all, if we talk about a dog, Lipper, what there are a lot of things that made him special, and I think the first thing that brought him to the attention of coon hunters across the country was his success in the night hunts and all. Tell the Lipper story for my audience, Tom, about how you ended up with the dog and some of the wins that you got with him and some of that. Just anything that you want to share would be great.
Okay. Back in the late 70s, I had decided I wanted to see some other parts of the world other than East Texas. So I had some relatives that from Texas that had moved to Utah, and I thought it worked for a big oil company up there. And but I'll tell you, when I left East Texas and left coon hunting, every day that went by, I missed it more. And I just, to the point that I said, I've got to go back to Texas to get me a dog, get back after it. So I did. I moved back to Texas, and I had an old friend that had bought a female from Joe House years before, and she was getting old. But he knew Joe, so he had bought a pup from Joe out of House Clint and Queen Lou, named Casey. Clint's Kentucky Casey is what he named him.
Okay, if we can tell our listeners real quick, Clint was sired by Chief, was he not?
Right.
Right. Okay, House's Chief was probably the most memorable dog that Joe personally hunted and campaigned. And that's just a little bit of information. Yeah.
That one picture of Chief growing up and as a young man, I would admire that picture of old Chief, and I would think to myself, man, if I could ever get a dog that looked as good as that and was that famous, I would be happy.
Yeah,
and that was kind of a goal, and to have a dog like that.
Well, let me jump in here with a little history too, just a little bit. Both Chief and Chief was out of Johnson's banjo. Johnson's. What was his sire? I know that history is like the back of my head, but I can't. There were two dogs, Banjo 2 and Chief, that were both out of
Well, Call River Chief was back in there.
Yeah, but I'm embarrassing myself right now because I've had a little bit of a brain, but anyway, Johnson's Banjo was the sire chief and of Merchant's Banjo too, is what I was trying to say, and I should have just kept my mouth shut. But you go ahead. You were talking about how much you'd like to have had a dog like Chief.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine, Buddy Harris, lived south of Marshall in Carthage. He had a pup that he had gotten from Joe that was out of Clint. He knew a full brother to Lipper, but he was an older litter. And he was around a year and a half old. And Buddy was working quite a bit and didn't have time to put in on him. And he asked me if I'd take and hunt that dog and promote him. And we'd partner up on him. So we partnered on Casey, and he was a nice dog, good-looking dog, nice dog, 3 lot of coons. And I made a Nite champion out of him pretty quick. Well, and Joe House called me, and he said, Tom, he said, I've heard about you and what kind of hunter you are. And he said, I hear you got a good young dog out of Clint. And I said, yeah, I do. I'm partners on one. So he said, I'll have to come down and go hunting with him. So we lined it up. Joe drove down, and we were hunting on mules a lot back then. So I loaded Joe up a mule, and we went down to Mr. Ralph Williams' neck of the woods, a Sabine River bottom, good woods, good hunting. And I guess there was probably half a dozen of us guys, but we just had old Casey by himself. And I think he treated 3 coons in about an hour and a half. And we got back to the truck, and Joe said, I'd like to buy that dog. And I said, I'm not going to sell my half. He's the nicest dog I've ever had. And I said, but Buddy Harris might sell his half. And so Joe bought Buddy Harris's half of Casey, and we were partners. Yeah. And he got ready to leave to go home. He said, Tom, I brought a pup with me. He said, I know you hunt nearly every night. He said, I'd like to partner this pup with you. He said, you hunt him and just keep him at your house, and we'll just be partners on him. And if he makes anything, well, we're 50-50. If he doesn't, just shoot him.
That's for all you animal rights people out there. Yeah. Well, that culling was very important in the development of the dogs that we have. And we have other methods now available, but still.
I got used to Lipper there for 2 or 3 days before I cut him loose, and just a smart pup. And I took him down to Haggerty Creek and cut him down an old grown-up logging road, and he left there like he knew what he was doing. And I had my light on him. He was going down that road, and he jumped straight up in the air, waist high, and just screamed. And I thought, man, he's run into a fence or something. And he hit the ground and left there screaming and squalling, went out about 200 yards, and just, I'd never heard a dog sound like that. And just went crazy, had a coon. And he was I don't know, 7 months old, maybe 6, 7 months old.
Wow.
And I knew right then that was going to be the dog. And so the next week I called Joe and I said, I want to make a deal with you. He said, what's that? I said, I want control and interest of this dog. I said, I will give you my half of that Casey dog. You can just have him if I can have control and interest. He never leaves my house. Joe said, well, I'll do that.
Yeah. Obviously saw something that you liked a lot to make that kind of deal. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the best deal I'd ever made.
Well, looking back, for sure, absolutely for sure. Well, describe Lipper there that till he reached a year old and all. How? What kind of a pup was he?
Well, he real tight wound, hard going, but he was smart. I mean, he would mind, but I spent a lot of time with him. I took him with me. I ran that grocery store, and I'd take him with me to work every day. And we had a good understanding.
Yeah.
That was back in the day when a lot of dog discipline wasn't evident in the coon hunting world. You know, you'd snap a lead on them, they'd drag you around through the woods.
Yeah.
But I had Lipper. I could put a leash on him, just snap a leash on him and drop it, and he would follow me, heel, and follow me wherever I went. Or if I was on a mule, if I was ready to go to the truck, I could put a leash on him and just throw it on the ground, and he knew, you know, he was with me. But when I popped that leash off, he was gone, you know. But he was a hard-going dog, quick strike dog. He was honest as the day is long, but when he smelled a track, he'd crack that jaw just immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And
that 100-point strike is so important in these hunts today, these high-dollar hunts. You know, they're all coon dogs. They'll all go find a coon to tree, and they're pretty accurate, or they have to be. But getting that first strike is a very important factor in the hunts today.
But Lipper would leave out, like I say, real hard. Dogs try to keep up with him. He'd try to scatter the dogs around. He was real smart. He wanted to be by himself. He would string dogs out and then circle back. He might strike behind you. But he'd have a coon tree before they knew which way he went.
Oh, man.
He was just that kind of dog. Try to get away from everybody and get one tree.
Yeah. Did you have to well, let me back up. Did you hunt him primarily by himself as a young dog like that, or did you hunt him a lot with other dogs?
100% by himself.
Yeah.
Just me and him.
After you saw him jump up in the air and tree that coon, you figured he didn't need any help, right?
He didn't need any help. He just needed to ride to the woods.
I got you. He probably, as smart as he was, he'd probably drive your truck.
He rode in the front seat enough.
Yeah, that's quite, that was always been quite an honor back through the years. If you had one good enough to ride in the front seat with you, you know, people would say, man, that must be a jam up coon dog right there. Well, of course he had that famous mouth. How did he compare in the mouth department to other hounds that you'd hunted up to that point?
Never heard anything like that before. I mean, I've had some dogs with some good long mouths, but they're just overpowering, very overpowering. And that was one of his big advantages also in a hunt. When he came treed, it was very rare that you could hear another dog treed with him. Many a time I've had a cast tell the judge, you know, we can't hear our dogs because of him. Can we move back a little bit? And sometimes they'd move the cast back a little bit, and they'd say, no, this is worse. We got to get closer. But it was just hard to hear a dog treat with him unless they had a real distinct mouth. He just was overbearingly loud.
Well, he had the reputation of producing that kind of dog too, that kind of mouth.
Oh,
on
yeah,
his
yeah.
pups, didn't
He put a lot of mouth back in the Walker dogs. He sure did.
Well, I know that he produced a lot of pups. I think it was over 5,000.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly when he produced the bulk of those pups. I know they were spread out. I know that between Joe and then you and was Mac the next owner or co-owner? Yeah, Mac right. McAllister got him.
Yeah, I sold him to Mac. It's probably the worst mistake I ever made, but yeah. But Joe never hunted Lipper.
Right. He was just a pup when you he brought him down there.
Right.
Right. Yeah, gotcha. So you put the wins on him. All right, well, let's talk about that. When did you decide to take him to town?
He was about a year old, and I had a friend that was going up to Hamburg, Arkansas to a hunt, and I said, I'm gonna take old Lipper, this pup, up there and hunt him. And of course, I didn't really want him to be called Lipper. I thought that was a horrible name, but I called him Clipper. Showed him in a couple of little local shows and won them. And went up to Hamburg and won that hunt. First hunt I ever put him in. I don't know, probably 50 dogs in that hunt. And, but Lipper won that thing hands down. And there was quite a story involved in that with the people I drew out with. But anyway, he won that hunt. And long story short, I made him a champion on the bench and had a couple of wins on him towards Nite champion when I sent the puppy papers in. And UKC would not change it up. I begged him, but
and I think maybe Joe got involved in that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Fred Miller was a very stubborn man,
but that didn't work. So he was with Lipper, and I said, man, if a dog named Lipper can become a household name, then you could name one whatever you wanted.
Yeah. I think as a side on that, I believe the whole litter was just kind of, back in those days, you had to name every pup in the litter.
Yeah.
And they just, chose Flipper.
They had run out of names. And Dorothy did all the paperwork, Joe's wife. And so on this particular litter, they put Lipper, Dipper, Flipper, Nipper, Snipper, And I just happened to get the papers with Lipper on it.
Yeah. But what a name that's carried through the ages, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really, really is. So tell me this story about that win up there that was noteworthy.
The first win?
Yeah.
Well, I drew out up there, and there was a guy in that area. His name was Troy Reese. He really turned out to be a really good guy and a good friend of mine. But at that time, he was a huge man, probably 300 pounds, not fat, big, tall. He and his brothers were all known to be bullies and bar fighters and those kind of guys. And anyway, I drew out with him, and we cut loose. I had first on this, just right out of the truck. And Troy Reese was hunting a red bone dog. And anyway, everybody in that clubhouse was scared to death of Troy Reese, including the judge that we had. And we got to that tree. Well, the Lipper was actually the only one on the tree. Two dogs hadn't treed, but the red dog had, but he was off the tree, milling around when we got in there. And he came back in there and started back treeing. Well, we found the coon, and I asked the judge, I said, did you minus the red dog? And he pulled me off to the side. He said, we can't minus that dog. That's Troy Reese's dog. And I caught wind of it. And he came over there and he said, little man, he said, you handle that spotted dog and I'll handle the red dog. I said, well, he was off the tree. He said, little man, I'll break your back. I said, well, you may do that, but you're not going to cheat me. And we bantered back and forth there a little bit, and finally the judge did minus him. We went on. Lipper ran up a pretty good score. I don't remember exactly what it was, but when it was all said and done, we had a few words as we went through that hunt. But we got back to the clubhouse, and old Troy, he put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, little man, he said, you got one hell of a dog. He said, I want to buy your breakfast. So we went in the clubhouse, and he told everybody in there what a fine hound Lipper was, and made friends with him, and we were friends from then on. But I think he respected the fact that I stood up to him rather than not.
Right. I knew Troy, knew him very well, and I always remember a conversation I had with him. Do you know if Troy's
with him then? And his son died not long after that. He choked on a sandwich driving down the road and had a crash and killed him.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was real close to his son, and they came within an inch of buying House's lawyer from me just before I let Joe have him.
Well, when I was at UKC, I had the unfortunate responsibility sometimes of dealing with situations, that came up in the hunts, as you can imagine, as many as we had all across the country. But, there at one time, Troy's name came up real often on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Somebody would call in and tell me a Troy story, So we started that American Heritage Hunt and Herd in Texas, and I may have told you this story before, Tom, but I'll be brief. And I had the opportunity to ask Troy to come over to the side and sit down with me there and have a little talk. And I remember it very well. And as you said, Troy was a big guy. He was intimidating just by his size. But Troy fell into a trap that a lot of guys do in coon hunting, is they have to win every time. And by various means. Well, Troy, used intimidation as his I don't know what, it's wild card or whatever.
Yeah, that was his too.
Yeah, but he was a pretty good guy to talk to and all, And I told him, I said, Troy, you really love this sport, don't you? Oh, yeah, I love it. I go every weekend I can. I said, well, Troy, here's where I'm faced with a real tough situation because I'm going to have to take something away from you that you really love. And obviously, you're a good coon hunter. I'm sure you carry a pretty good dog. But I said, I'm going to have to sit you out. I'm going to have to turn you into a golfer or a bowler or something like that. And he looked at me like that. And of course, I'm not as big a man as you are, Tom. And I said, I don't know how Troy's going to take this, but it's got to be said.
Yeah.
And I said, man, you just got to back off on that, Call your dog for what he does. Let the chips fall. Come on back and hunt every time the doors are open, but you can't keep down the road you're going, buddy. And I don't know whether that helped him or not. I do know that the complaints, were pretty much non-existent after that. But anyway, the guy that I remember, he was not ever disrespectful to me. He didn't cuss me or anything like that, But yeah, so I can relate to that situation. That's a great story, Tom, really. Well, okay, so you go and you win the first hunt with him. Then I imagine you went to another one, didn't you, pretty soon?
Oh, yeah. I pretty much made every weekend somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he finished out as quickly as he did. Back at that time, he was the youngest dog to ever be a dual grand champion, Grand Nite, Grand Show champion.
So he did have the designation of being the earliest that got that dual grant.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He was the youngest ever.
Right. Well, and another designation that I remember with him was through PKC. When did you, or maybe it was PCA back then?
Yeah, it started out PCA.
Yeah. Tell us a little about what he did in PCA and PKC.
Well, Joe was somewhat involved in PCA when it first started. He was somewhat involved,
mm-hmm.
and he knew Jarvis well. And anyway, so he wanted me to get Flipper registered in that, which I did, and I started. They came up with that. The national championship they were going to run, and it was going to entail over 5,000 dogs. They were going to take so many dogs from each area of the country, division, and then state, and then from state to regional, and then so it started out over 5,000 dogs, and narrowed it down. I won the Texas. And then the regional, Arkansas and Oklahoma and whatever, and that was fun. And it was a Lipper was just stacking them up. He'd win a hunt, and so Joe was somewhat keeping up with that, but he wasn't. He had no visions of me really taking him to the top with that, but he didn't know what I had. And anyway, Lipper won his way up through there and all the way to the, I guess what they call the semifinals or the finals there in Chickasaw, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we took him up there, and there was, all the big boys were there.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Lipper was still, I don't think he was quite 2. But anyway, we narrowed that thing down, got down to the last cast, had some really good dogs, and had, back then Wayne Green was a big name handler, and
oh yeah, Wayne and was friends with he hunted with Mike Mahoney, and then he hunted with Russ Beller.
With Beller, yeah, he was with Beller hot and heavy then, and Yates,
Ed Yates.
Ed Yates.
Yep.
Jerry Booker.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so it was a heck of a cast that went out, and I don't know. I haven't never counted the number of guys in that picture, but there was, 15 guys maybe.
Yeah, I remember the picture well. You still have that picture, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that was going out that last round was something, and that was one of those times that Lipper's mouth really paid off. We had treed some coons, and not many. It was late. The coons weren't stirring. It was real thin. It wasn't a big score.
Well, that area is not a heavy, not really infested with raccoons anyway. There around that Chickasaw Park.
It was as the hunt went on. It was still anybody's hunt at that point, and Lipper got in there deep and struck. I could hear him, and so we started walking that way, and we were crunching. It was dry. The leaves were dry, and we were crunching down through those woods, and all that big group of guys. You can imagine the road noise. And I heard Lipper had a kind of a tail on the end of his voice when he'd locate, kind of scream right at the end of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if he was real deep, that's all you could hear was that tail on the end of his mouth. And so I heard him do that twice, and we were in a heavy walk left in the hunt, and I treed old Lipper. And nobody else was even hearing the dog. And so the judge said, I don't hear a dog. I said, well, if everybody be quiet, you'll hear him. And so sure enough, you could hear that tail on his voice, and then you could hear a little bit of his voice way in there. And Wayne Green took his helmet off and threw it on the ground, cursed a little bit. And the rest of them they said, well, I'm not sure he's treed. I said, well, put your compass on him. And back in those days, that's what you had.
Yeah.
And so we started that way. And walked for a good long while. Of course, the hunt was way over when we got in there. And the other dogs had eventually treed. We got there, Lipper was on a tree by himself and had a coon, and the other 3 were about 30 yards from him on the edge of a little slough there, treed in a willow bush. Wasn't anything in it. And,
boy, that's so putting it to them now, Tom.
And I gathered him up and tried to squeeze him in too. And anyway,
and that was the national championship. Now, is that when you won the pickup truck?
The pickup truck and $3,000 in a dog box and some dog food. It was a heck of a deal for me.
For anybody, especially in that day. Oh man!
And of course, Joe had heard that I was in the finals, but the next day he called and he said, well, I heard you won it all. I said, yeah. He said, well, I didn't think you was going to do any good. He said, I'd have been down there. I said, well, you should have been there.
That's right. That's snooze, you lose, huh? Well, that's great. So then Lipper is on the way. Now, was he already a Grand Nite champion by then?
Oh, he was due a Grand.
Already,
and had been for a good while, and a PCA champion.
Yeah. So About how old was he at that time, Tom?
Just coming to.
Not even 2 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
A beautiful hound. Was he easy to show? I mean, did he like it, or was he a handful?
He would get bored with it after a little bit. I know that I was in the ACHA World Show up there with Junior Lassiter and some other big boys. His name comes to mind because he came and talked to me afterward. Everybody thought he would win it. And but about the fourth round, old Lipper was tired of fooling with that bench. He was restless. So if you had to show him more than once, once or twice, he would get a little irritated with it. But he was a beautiful show dog. But he wasn't. That wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
He had too much energy to stand still that long.
I got you. Well, now, did you start breeding him about that time? When did you start breeding Lipper?
I bred Lipper just before he was a year old. He was about 11 and a half months old the first time I bred him.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the litter that House's Lawyers is.
Okay, well, what I wanted to do, and were there other major events that Lipper won? I mean, as if that wasn't enough.
Yeah, he won several state championships: Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. He won the Texas bench show like 3 years in a row. The grand show.
Yeah,
and,
at Fairfield there. Or Mahia? Yeah, Fairfield.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, that's a big show, or was in those days. That was a big show for sure.
It was huge, yeah.
Yeah. Have any concept of just how big an event like the Texas State Championship was in those days? At one time, it was the largest UKC hunt in the country.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was a little competition between them, I think, in Black and Tan days, which also always had a big entry. But Texas was hot in more ways than one. I'd go there in September, and I think I was going to die. But it was, as far as coon hunt's concerned, I'll always remember the World Championships, the PKC World Hunts in Aurora, Kentucky. Uh-huh. And they'll always stand out as, the big crowds and all the great things that happened there. But as far as going to a UKC coon hunt, there was nothing in my mind to compare to the Texas State Championship. Back in those days. I mean, you just had to be there. It was a state fair atmosphere. The only thing they didn't have was the Ferris wheels and the tilt-a-whirl. They did have those guys on the microphone, Guy Manning, all those people that kept that PA system hot all the time, talking, and people walking around all those tents and all those little shelters that were, constructed. Well, all this, but I'm trying to paint a picture for the listeners. The little sheds, like where you could put your cot in your sleeping bag and you could stay right there on the grounds,
Yeah.
And the card games that were going on and all the campfires and the 42, games everywhere.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Just awesome. Well, did you ever win the state hunt, the night hunt portion with Lipper?
Yeah. I won second 1 or 2 years, and then I won it 1 year. I can't remember what year it was, but
that's awesome right there. Yeah.
But talking about the Texas State hunt, Lipper was a known dog, I guess, the last time that I took him down to the state hunt, and I drew out with some guys. And of course, you draw out in the afternoon, and they tell you where to meet up.
Yeah.
These guys told me where to meet them, and when I got to where I was supposed to meet them, no one was there, and everybody else was leaving. And so I went back to the master of hounds, and I said, "Look," I said, "These guys told me to meet them so and so, and they're not there. Nobody's there." And this one guy sitting at a table back there, he got up and walked up there, and he said, "Are you Tom Hopkins?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I know the guys that you drew out with, and they told you the wrong place to meet them. They didn't want to hunt with you, so I know where they went." So he said, "I'll take you where they're hunting if you want me to." I said, "Let's go." So I followed him, and we drove, I don't know, several miles. They had already cast their dogs, had just cast their dogs when I pulled up. And I got out. I said, "Well, you guys ran off without me." "Well, we didn't see you." I said, "Well, I'm gonna turn my dog loose." "Oh no, you can't turn him loose now. We've already cast." I said, "Well, then we're going back to the clubhouse, and we're going to the master of hounds, and I'm going to tell him what you guys did about leaving me there, and I'll have the whole cast thrown out." And they said, "Well, go ahead and turn him loose."
We've had a change of heart, Mr. Hopkins.
But old Lipper drummed them good that night too. He wore them out, which was an added bonus.
Oh yeah, karma.
I can't remember where we placed second, third, or whether that was the year I won it. I don't remember, but that was a unique.
That's a unique situation. Well, thank goodness for this guy that was sitting there and knew the story and was willing to take you, where they were. Can you imagine people doing that? Well, people are capable of doing anything, I have learned over the years. But that winning becomes all-consuming to some people, Yeah. And, hey, this is a game. If, Secretariat was a great racehorse, all those other horses, they just needed to up their game if they wanted to reach the fame and fortune that he did.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this dog, these outstanding phenoms, as I sometimes say. And I've talked about him here, and I don't ever want to say he's in the same class as Lipper or not. But my partner and I have a little dog that's 3 years old, and it's for the plot breed. He's a phenom. He is amazing. But they don't come along every day. I was counting back the other day. I've had a plot dog and, been hunting with them since I was, actually for 71 years, and I've never seen one like him. So, just these special dogs come along. I don't know, the good Lord, I guess, just knows the enjoyment that they're going to bring to us, I guess.
If they get in the right hands, that's the other thing. There's probably some of those that have slipped through the cracks, tied out behind somebody's barn. But if you take them to town, like you say, it's just every great once in a while that you get one of those.
Right. Well, you mentioned earlier there one of Lipper's offspring, and I want to talk to you about that. The other hounds that you've been involved with, and I would imagine most of them have been off Lipper or closely bred to Lipper. What was your next great one after Lipper, or maybe while you had Lipper?
Lawyer, House's Lawyer.
Yeah.
He was out of Lipper's first litter, and that was an awesome hound. It was a shame that he died so soon. No more time than he spent in the breeding pen up at Joe House's place. He put out some awful good dogs. Mm-hmm. He was a reproducer, but he didn't have a mouth on the track. He sounded like a coyote on the track.
Mm.
But he would get country, and when he treed, it's like nothing you ever heard. He was a solid, constant roar, and it was amazing.
Was he the dog that you were hunting with one night you mentioned that Timothy Ball went into the tree?
Yeah.
Tell that story.
I went up to Oklahoma and I had Lawyer, and I drew out with Tim Ball and some other guys, but we went to a place that it was a switch cane thicket. I mean, it was just fight your way through it. And dogs had treated their Lawyer was just screaming like he was dying. And we all made our way in there. And just as we broke through that switch cane at the tree, there was a little clearing around the tree where the dogs had been treed and whatever. And we broke out into that little clearing, and Lawyer, we were right there on top of the dogs, and Lawyer threw his head back, you know, and was just bellowing like he did. When he threw his head back and screamed, Timothy just fell backwards into that palmetto switch cane business. The judge, that dog tried to bite me. I said, no, Tim, he's just treed. And he was putting on a show. He was just, he never closed his mouth, and the sound never stopped coming out. I don't see how he could breathe and do that. He was just a
oh man, I wish you'd have had a good iPhone there or something to record.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a good one.
It would have probably at that close. You probably wouldn't have been able. It would have just fuzzed it out, you know. Oh man!
But he was just ungodly loud and a coon treer.
What female did you breed to get him?
I had before I got Casey. I think I had ordered a couple of pups from Dahoney out of Tree Picking Chief and Dahoney's Fancy.
Okay.
And got two females. A friend of mine got one, and I got one. But I never have been much on hunting a female. I just never have. I don't know why I even ordered that female, but I was wanting to get a dog, and I had her, and I didn't have anything else but her. She was just a young yearling pup, and I was running that grocery store, and I had an old. When I got Casey, well, I was hunting him hard, and I had an old black gentleman that lived right up there from the store, an old friend of mine. He didn't drive or anything, but he loved to coon hunt. And I'd go by and pick him up, take him with me coon hunt. Well, he really liked that little female. He just fell in love with her. And did you sell me that dog? And I knew he was poor, you know, and I said, yeah, Willie, I'll sell you that dog for $35. And so sure enough, he bought Lucille was her name for $35, and he came up to the store the next morning with a hay rope and tied it around her neck. I took my collar off, and he led her home. Well, I kept taking him for a while after that, and man, she started treeing, just looking good. And I thought, you know, I wouldn't mind having that female to raise some pups out of. So anyway, finagle around, and I asked him if I could buy her back. He said, oh, I love that dog. I said, well, I'll give you $50 back for her. And so he took it. So I bought her back for $50, and that's House's Lawyer's mother.
You're a pretty shrewd dog dealer. That's a great story. All right, what other hounds out of Lipper that we can talk about? I've got a few in mind, but I want you to pick.
The next one I promoted after Lawyer, you know, I used Lawyer to own all of Lipper. You know, Joe House called me. He heard about Lawyer up on this Lipper dog. He said, either I'm going to have to buy you out or you're going to have to buy me out. Well, I was poor, and I said, well, what do you want for your half, Joey? He said, $10,000. I said, well, man, I don't have $10,000. And he said, well, what about that Lawyer dog you've got? I've been hearing about him. I said, yeah. I said, he's a hell of a dog, Joe. And another thing about Lawyer, let me just throw this in. It's a different story, but I made Lawyer into a Nite champion in 9 days, 2 weekends, 2 consecutive weekends.
That's strong.
In 4 hunts in 2 weekends, Friday night, Saturday night, 2 weekends in a row, and made him a Nite champion in 9 days.
That's great. Well, my neighbor decided to crank up the lawnmower while you were talking,
But
Tom.
anyway,
But, yeah, but that's strong. That's really strong.
back to my story. Joe said, if you'll let me have that lawyer dog, I'll sign over my half a lipper. And even though I hated to see him go, that was a good deal for him and a good deal for me. And it gave lawyer some good exposure. And so anyway, that's how I got all of Flipper. But after lawyer was the Adios Lightning dog that I won the ACHA Little World Hunt with and Texas State Hunt with.
That was a Georgia dog.
Yeah. That big old black and white dog.
I think you told me the story about how he came to Texas.
Yeah, came to Texas on the back of a flatbed truck in freezing weather. And it was raining when he got here.
Woo.
I looked at that big old wet dog, and he was not all that pretty, great big old black and white dog. And I said, I hate that guy drove all the way from Georgia to show me that dog. And we went hunting in the rain. Man, he treed 3 coons like popping popcorn. And I said, where do I sign? And so I became partners on him, and I won a lot of. That was one powerful dog, and biggest fault he had was a straight line hunter. If you cut him loose, he was going the direction you pointed him till he treated a coon. And if you didn't hear him in about 5 minutes, you need to start that way.
Well, that's just about like most of them are nowadays.
I won a lot with him.
Yeah.
And my partner Larry Baggett, he had cancer when I met him, and it was getting worse and worse. And when we won that Little World Hunt, that was a touching moment. Larry was so proud of that dog. He cried, and not long after that, he called me and he asked me, he said, I know this is a silly question. He said, but would you let me buy that other half of Lightning back so I could have him here? And Larry was dying. And I said, yeah, I will. So I let him have his half back. And he went on to win that national championship again, and his son won it. Adios Eagle won the national championship twice.
Well, Tom, let's talk about the cash dog you had. I know he played an important role in the hounds that you had down through the years. What can you tell us about him?
Cash, he was one of my favorites. He was probably the most balanced of the 3 or 4 main dogs that I had. He was more the same every time. He would good mouth, beautiful dog, hard hunt dog. He would fall off behind dogs and tree coons a lot of times, and then get back in and tree the coon thereafter. He was just a better than average hound, and like I say, he was tough. He was out of all of them, he was the toughest one as far as staying treed. Those competition hunts, you've got some ouchie dogs and all, but old Cash he was not a mean hair on him. He was not going to be moved, and that was a good plus. I lost a few hunts with Lipper because I put him in those hunts so young, and a mean dog would run him off a tree. He didn't like to tree with other dogs. He would, but if there was a mean one there, he was liable to go on and tree another one.
I got you. Yeah, and I've noticed that with young dogs myself. And I had a good female one time, and she got roughed up real bad on a Final Four one night. I wanted to split and go home. I'd won her money I needed. This female had a bad reputation. I should have just took 4th place and went home, but what that caused that female to do, she was always from that point on watching the other dogs all the time while she was treeing. And if she could, sometimes she'd get over there and slide over another tree, which would hurt me sometimes because she wouldn't have anything on that tree, you know. But she just wanted to get away from them. So I don't know why guys hunt rough dogs in the hunts. I don't understand it, but they've always been there, and I guess they always will.
Yeah, they've always been there. Yeah. But Cash could take that kind of heat. One thing that happened with him that always sticks in my mind that I'd never seen before or after, we were in a UKC hunt one night down in East Texas, and Cash had to cast one, but he was treed in there deep, and a pack of coyotes came in there and jumped on him at the tree. He was there by himself.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a war, and it sounded like it lasted for a long time. I'm sure it didn't last but 30 seconds, you know, but and it sounded like a bunch of coyotes, but it might have been 2 or 3. But the bottom line is, when the smoke cleared, he went back to treeing. We went in and looked at the coon, and there wasn't a scratch on him, but it sounded like a war when they tied up.
They said, look here, we got to hold more than we can handle. We better get on out of here. Yeah.
He held that pressure. I figured he'd hold it.
Well, all these dogs down in the house line and down were pretty good sized dogs, weren't they, Tom?
Yeah, for the most part, they were, 65, 70-pound dogs are up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking of the House's Bally dog that Joe won the World Hunt with, and he sold to Jimmy Jackson over in Tennessee. Did you ever see that dog?
No, I hadn't met Joe at that time.
I got you. Yeah, I never did see him either.
When I met Joe, Clint was an old dog.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of good stories, too, that people have shared about Clint and what a hound he was, and
yeah.
And all, yeah. Well, Joe House is a name that I hope the younger hunters will learn as much as they can about these older breeders, because they really are the foundation of our sport. After the night hunts came along and all, guys like Joe and John Monroe and Jim Merchant and so many others that really laid the foundation. And Joe certainly laid a strong one with those house-bred dogs.
He sure did.
For sure. Well, what else we got on the lipper side of the ledger there that you hunted or have hunted?
I pretty much retired from competition hunting after Cash.
I got you.
I was a little bit burnt out, the phone ringing all the time, and I was just ready to take a break from it.
Well, that's the thing. The dogs that had the notoriety in those days and all the acclaim and all. There was no internet that would call at all hours of the night. Believe it or not, I got a phone call the other night at 11:30. I thought that was a bit much for a guy my age anyway. Of course, I didn't even hear the call come in, but I saw the next morning someone who tried to call me at 11:30. But no, so many people. I've talked to Mac, McAllister, and of course that story with Mac. He owned Lipper for many, many years, and then I think in Lipper's very last joiner, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's where he died.
Yeah, and the story is that when he died, Herschel put him in a freezer. Did you ever hear that story?
Yeah, he put him in the freezer because Herschel, he had a big farm there in Kentucky, and so did his father, and his father was in real poor health, and Herschel wasn't sure whether he was going to stay on his property or move over to his dad's farm, and he wanted Lipper buried wherever he ended up.
I got you.
So he froze him.
I see. Well, he was thinking
for over a year before they.
Yeah. How about that? Well, I guess somebody knows where that grave is. I don't know. Is it marked?
Yeah, it is marked. Seems like he sent me a picture of that marker at one time, but I don't know if I would ever find it. But.
Well, maybe one of my listeners knows and has been by and seen the grave, the great House's Lipper. If you have, send me a message or post it on Coon Hunting Conversations or whatever. That would be great. And I don't know that the people that own that property now are looking for a big crowd of people. But at least I'd sure like to visit that gravesite. I know I've been to the Coon Dog Cemetery in Alabama, and that's really quite a thing. But the immortal House's Lipper, there'll never be another one like him. And as I said before, I think it was over 5,000 pups that he produced.
Yeah, it was over 5,000, and that does not count the semen pups that have been born since.
Right. Now, did you personally free some semen on Lipper?
Yeah, he was the second dog ever collected. Spring Creek Rock was first,
right?
And then Lipper was with Dr. Randy Fralick.
Randy Fralick. I saw a picture of Randy the other day. He's gotten a little gray-headed.
Yes, he has. Like the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, you still got that good head of hair. I think you get that from your dad. But mine, I kind of look like a peeled onion up there myself. But yeah, well, time marches on, and you said that you've basically retired from the coon hunting game. Do you even have a hound on the place?
No, I don't.
No, okay. Well, if it weren't for my partner up in North Carolina and good friends of mine around the country, I've had partnerships with dogs that have enabled me to kind of keep my hand in a little bit. But I've reached the age, that I don't want to be hunting by myself. I don't mind going by myself, but I've got a wife in here that kind of frowns on that, and I've learned I'm pretty smart if I listen to what she says.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know that you have a lovely bride. I see your pictures on Facebook, and it seems like the good Lord's really been good to you too in that regard.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
In every regard.
Absolutely. Well, okay, as we wind this down, Tom, and I do so appreciate your time today. We've had a few technical difficulties we've had to deal with, but is there any one thing that you can think of that you took away from that amazing career that you had and owning such an immortal dog and all that? What does all that mean to you, or what can you take away from that?
Well, I was introduced to coon hunting when I was real small, 5 years old or so. I started going with my dad. And when you grow up doing that, I guess certain things stick in your mind, but it became important to me to have the best dog there was, the very best. And it finally had it. I'm sitting here today, and people talk about old Lipper like he's still alive.
Yeah, he will always be alive in our minds, Tom.
So that, to me, fulfilled my goal of making a mark, I guess you'd say, in the coonhound world.
Sure. Well, a big mark it is for sure. And man, I was always amazed, really, about the dog and what he was able to produce, and his longevity as a stud dog, and of course I followed his story all the way through. I remember those pictures in the old Pro Hound and the magazines and all, and then the Lipper mouth, that people talked about so much back in the day, and it's just been an amazing story, and to know that you're still alive and well and kicking and able to tell it. And I think if your dad's any indication, you're going to be around for a long time. And I sure hope so, Tom.
I do too. I think he'll probably outlive me. He's amazing.
He definitely is. Well, folks, I've been talking to Tom Hopkins. Tom, what town do you live in?
Sunnyvale, Texas.
Sunnyvale. I had the privilege of doing an article with Tom about Lipper a few years ago for American Cooner magazine, and so much of this story I'd heard before, but boy, I sure enjoyed the retelling and the visit with you today. Friends, look at your pedigrees. If you're a Walker man, look back. I bet you're going to find House's Lipper back there somewhere. One of the greatest hounds that ever mashed mud, that's for sure. And we're so thankful to have Tom on the podcast today. I want to take this opportunity to thank my sponsors. W Hunting Supply. Buddy Woodbury does such a great job in providing this platform for us to come to you each week. I want to thank Alpha Dog Nutrition, our sponsor with all kinds of nutritional aids and supplements for your dog. And also to my buddy, Big Mark Zepp with Zepp Predator Calls, markzepp.com. Okay, that's going to do it for this week, folks, on the Gone to the Dogs podcast. If you're out there in the dark and you hear a hound way off in the distance with a great big mouth, screaming mouth that sends chills up your backbone and makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck, that's probably old Lipper coons. Tom, thank you so much for coming on, and we wish you a great year. And folks, we'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. I enjoyed it.